Welcome to the Illuminated Path podcast. I'm your host, Liv, founder of Eno Wellness Collective. My wellness journey started with yoga, which led me down the path of exploring healing modalities like meditation, breath work, sound healing, mindset work, and so much more. This exploration inspired my mission to help others find what lights them up. Get comfortable and curious as we learn from experts, teachers, and creators who are lighting up their communities and living an inspired, expansive life. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Illuminated Path podcast. Today's guest is Lauren Santos, also known as Coach Lo. And Lauren and I go way back. We actually used to dance together back in high school and had reconnected semi-recently. And I had her in mind as we were thinking about who to have on the podcast and who had local roots here to Guam as well. And so Lauren, also known as Coach Lo, is originally from Guam, where she grew up dancing competitively, as I mentioned, through Skip across the US, across Europe, across Canada. And then she left Guam and went on to pursue a B.F.A in dance at the University of Hawaii, and then proceeded to dance professionally in both New York and LA. She's danced on the Latin AMAs, the Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and then she eventually moved to Los Angeles and she left dance professionally, which we'll get into in this episode, and really began to pursue this career in the fitness industry. So alongside being a fitness professional and a coach, she is also pursuing an amateur boxing career, which is amazing. We get into talking about these big life transitions that have happened from Guam to Hawaii to New York to LA, switching up careers, taking a lot of those lessons from dance into fitness and now into boxing, and just overall how being in that role as a fitness trainer, the art and the power of bringing storytelling and vulnerability into the mix. So I can't wait to share this episode and this conversation with you all. Let me know what you think, and excited to have Lauren join us on this episode. Welcome to the podcast, Lauren, also known as Lo.
Woo-hoo. Hello.
I am so excited to reconnect with you in this way. It's been many years since we've seen each other or even connected. So, since we've gone and done our own wellness journeys and our own journeys in different, fields beyond how we knew each other originally, I find what you're doing out in LA to be so inspiring. So I'm really excited to share with the Wellness community more about you and what's lighting you up these days. So would love to kick it off with just hearing a little bit about who you are and what you're doing out there.
So grew up on Guam. That's how I met you. Yay. Grew up dancing, did that whole 9 at Skip, and then obviously went to Academy. After I graduated, I went to UH Manoa. So not that far, but I originally thought that I was going to go to New York, and then just the way things played out, I ended up in Hawaii. Didn't think that I was actually going to continue to dance, which I think not a lot of people know. I originally started to major in business, and then I didn't take any business classes. I only took dance classes. And eventually I was like, I should really change my major because I have not taken any business classes at all. Did that. And then I still wasn't actually sure if I wanted to dance, but I did a study abroad in London. And when I did that, that's kind of when I was like, okay, I want to pursue it professionally. And the original plan was to go, when I got back to Hawaii, was to graduate and then go back to London because they had a really dope master's program. That you could kind of like dance professionally, but also get your MA at the same time. So that was my original plan. As you know, but maybe not everyone else knows, the year I came back, my mom passed away. So it sort of sent everything a little bit haywire in terms of like what I could do, what I wanted to do. And I then just sort of switched gears and went to New York because that seemed like the next best option. And I kind of just like put all my bets on New York. Like I spent every last dollar I had like 2 suitcases, and then just showed up to New York and got a job. And the rest is history on that. And then just pursued dance for a really long time. I'm sorry, I'm speeding through this because I feel like we want to get to like how I got into, I guess, health and wellness specifically, but um, did a lot of dance in New York that I loved. And I started boxing there because I was told I needed to essentially lose weight. That was really what he was saying. So I just joined ClassPass and then immediately jumped into everything I could. And the one that really took was boxing. So I sort of kept doing that on the side. I did yoga. I loved yoga. That was the other, side part to that. But I really had taken to boxing. So when I moved to LA, I got jobs at a boxing gym, really just front desk, and then started being around fitness. And especially in LA, it's so big here. I'm sure you know, but it's a whole scene here. Um, and I looked at the instructors and I was like, I really want to do that. And I was starting to segue away from dance. And I sort of fell into teaching at this place called Lit Method. And then it just sort of took off from there. And now mainly what I do is fitness, and I love it so much.
I love hearing your story again. And also, a lot of those pieces I didn't know about, what happened post Hawaii and New York and LA. And, I know, since moving back to Guam, I also see that the Skip, which is the dance company that we were both part of, is the alumni, and just how they have changed and transformed is so amazing to see. And so I do want to take it back there just for a moment, because I
Totally.
was only part of it very short, right? I only went to one competition. I was really in high school, but at that time you had been in it for a really long time, and you were really sort of a shining star at Skip at that point. And I'm sure a lot of the lessons that you took from dance, you've probably applied it in all different things that you've done just professionally and into fitness. So, what was your experience like from your point of view, kind of being in dance professionally and then deciding, okay, I'm going to take this big time over to LA and do it in school and kind of take dance as a piece of even what you do today?
Yeah, I think I definitely think with Skip, I credit everything that I was able to do, I learned from Skip. And not from like even just a dance point of view, although of course like I think I felt really lucky to have learned from all the people we got to learn from. And I think I really didn't understand how big that was at the time until I started working in the mainland, and I was like, wait, I worked with this person and this person, and there are people clawing their way to work with some of these like top name people. But I would say the biggest thing I learned from Skip was like discipline, being able to like know what it means to work hard, and kind of just like doing what you got to do to get the job done is sort of the way that I thought about it. And I think we really overcame a lot when it came to, whether it just be like traveling to competitions and like being able to like sit on a plane for long hours and then jump off and rehearse at like really anywhere. Like I felt like I could dance anywhere and be fine. Like I think when I started going to New York and they had us dance like, maybe not in optimal spaces, aka just like not a stage, I was like, oh, this is fine. I've danced in a street, I've danced like literally in 100-degree weather, like we're chill. So I just wanted to harp on that because I think I wouldn't have been able to do half the things I did if I didn't learn some of the core values that you really got from Skip. And not to say you can't get that from other studios. That's just what I received from them. And I think what made me flourish a lot was I just always knew that like even if I didn't get it right away, I was going to. Or if I showed, most of the time I felt like I was sort of like the bottom of the barrel because, at the time we had less exposure, I think, to like just different styles, techniques. We got a lot, but we also didn't have the same access that the kids now have. And they're just incredible. If I was that good at that age, I would like have left Guam earlier, maybe to like go dance earlier. But I think the biggest gift it gave me was in pursuing it in New York was I could walk into any space, and even if I had no idea what I was doing, I'd figure it out. And I worked my way up to like be able to dance with people that like went to Juilliard and purchase some of these like big name schools, and then also be able to segue into commercial dance, which was a totally different, vibe in itself. There was like the contemporary world, which was, really more for the heart than the wallet. And then the commercial stuff, which was, a little bit of both, but mostly like you got to do like music videos, the sort of like big payout. And then I did a little bit in LA, but to be honest, by the time I got to LA, I did like a few fairly bigger jobs that were amazing, but my heart wasn't really in it anymore. I think a lot of it too, I felt like worn out because I almost went like hard for post college. If I didn't include college, it was like 6.5 years.
Mm.
And I was like, I got
Yeah, and I even like just the energy between New York and LA. I'm sure you see like the different vibe and how people are approaching things. It makes sense that in New York, you're like, let's hustle, let's go, let's kind of be in that like go, go, go
it.
grind. And then kind of moving over to the West Coast and having a different experience. I love that you said you joined ClassPass and just started to, try different things. That is such a beauty of ClassPass and other, things like it, is that you get to explore new studios you might have never stepped foot in or got a membership to. So tell me about your first boxing experience. I imagine that it was a little intimidating, but what was that first experience going and being like, I'm just going to book this class and see how it goes?
Uh, it was definitely super intimidating. I chose this like older gym, and it was like you walk downstairs and it was like loud. All you hear, and like mostly men, and all you hear is like oosh, oosh, just like loud noises is like mostly what I remember. And it was like dark. I didn't have anything, of course, because like why would I have gloves and wraps? And so they gave me like an old pair of like rental gloves. I think they might have given me wraps or something. I honestly don't even remember. But the first thing that I do remember is they made me run um, the like half of the Brooklyn Bridge in like I think it was like 4 because it was winter. It was definitely winter. It was cold, and I had worn shorts underneath my sweats and had no idea that they were going to make us run. I also didn't run. I hated running, so that was the first thing we did. We had to like run the bridge, come back, and then it was just like it felt like everything was happening at once. No one really taught me anything on that date, but I was just like, okay, like I just would follow people. And I think benefits of being a dancer is like we could see what people are doing and like fake it till we make it. So that's what it felt like the whole class. And then halfway, I want to say like towards the end, they like put us in the ring, cut it in half, and we just like went up against each other. But again, like I didn't even understand what the instruction was. But in my mind, I was like, I'm just supposed to hit this girl. So I just did that. I just kept trying to hit her. I was like all over the place, like more just like any street fight I'd ever been in. I feel like that was what I was doing. And this girl was like actually trained. So that was my first experience. I tried a few other gyms out after that that like really taught me the punches, but I loved that gym. It was like if you thought about any boxing movie or whatever, that like fulfilled your dreams.
I can imagine you're like, okay, I know dance and I know choreography, so let me just follow what he's doing in more of a choreography mode. Wow. And I imagine now that
Exactly.
you're the coach and you're on the other side, you can see as people come into your classes like maybe being a little scared or like intimidated or not knowing quite what to do. So that first experience didn't scare you away, obviously, because you decided to continue to do it. So what were some of those experiences like either, coaches that you had or how did you kind of take that next step beyond just going to the class?
Well, I think this need to be perfect at the time was like, okay, I really sucked at that. I need to do it again. So the second place I went, I just kind of like showed up and I was a bit more forthcoming with the fact that I had never boxed before. Like the first place, I think I was really quiet. So I didn't say, I think they knew it was my first time. I think it was really clear, but they didn't really like know, and I think I was like athletic enough that I was getting away with it. So the second place I had tried, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I need help. And they were super hands on. It was a smaller class, it was a bit more boutique. And I think what made me keep coming was actually the fact that they were more embracing of the fact that I sucked. I mean, on a lot of levels. Like there's this the beautiful thing about boxing is that it's really never done. And it's like that in dance too, like the process is never done. But there is this level of like you need to learn things fast, especially the higher up you get, right? You get a correction, you apply it right away. This wasn't that. This was like, okay, you don't know how to jab, you're not, and they would straight up just be like, you're not going to know how to do this for months even, and that's okay. But the point is, you keep coming, and I just really held on to that, and I think it made me more patient in dance, actually.
Yeah, that's definitely a, a piece that I'm sure that you apply outside of, the gym as well, of like perfectionism of like I need to nail it and I need to nail it now and I have to be perfect, and if I'm not perfect, it's going to kind of fuel it more and more. So, how has that perfectionism like slowly been, I guess, unraveled as like either experiences you've had in the ring or even just with, coaches? How have you sort of start to shed those layers of like it has to be perfect?
I mean, it's still work. It's still I started working with a sports psychologist too, because I have been prepping to fight. I was actually supposed to fight this Sunday, and there was no girl that was in my weight class. So, oh well. But on to the next one. But I started working with him, and that's one of the biggest things that we talk about a lot. Because when I first started working with him, I have listened to a ton of podcasts and I write a lot, and I, try to breathe patience into like myself. But the perfectionism thing really does, like, it trickles into every part of my life, whether it be work, myself, my body. It's like if even one thing is out of place, like I used to just rip myself apart for years and years and years. And I still catch myself doing it now, but I think the difference now is that in my mind, I know that that's not realistic. Like I almost have to outwardly remind myself. So I have a lot of conversations with myself. I live by myself, so not super weird, but I usually say my name. I say like, Lo, you got this, or Lo, like this is what's real. This is amazing. And I think it's my success and my downfall. My success is that because I'm sort of always in this active pursuit of some sort of perfectionism, I'm always looking to be better and better and better, which is wonderful. But my downfall is that if it doesn't ever reach that, I, tear myself apart. um so I think the ways that to answer your question, long story short, the ways that I've really like tried to work on it in my daily life as well as boxing is that I have constant conversations with myself, reminding myself that essentially it's not real. I listened to this podcast actually with Kobe, or it was an interview, and he talked about being a perfectionist, and he said, I'm like a realistic perfectionist. I strive for it, but I'm also realistic that it's not that. So that's what I like to think that I am.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of, yeah, whether it's athletes, dancers, coaches, like in this wellness space and health fitness space, like I'm sure that theme comes up for a lot of people, like wanting to, it's like a double-edged sword of it's served you in certain ways, but then on the other side, it can also be like a shadow too. So it sounds like from your New York experience, you like LA was kind of a welcomed change. And I personally really love LA. I actually, when I was in college, I went to college in San Diego, and then I would go up to LA all the time. And I even lived in LA for like a hot minute after college too. And going back now, kind of at this age and this stage, I see how I'm like, wow, LA is really booming with everything health and wellness. Like it's not a trend there. It's a lifestyle. Like there's so much access to
Mhm.
like literally the best of everything. So I know you mentioned, before we hopped on, you've been there about 6 years. So what drew you to LA, and why have you decided to stay so long?
So what initially drew me the first time I came to visit LA, I just want to also preface, like, I never wanted to live in LA. I never wanted to live on the West Coast. Like, I was just like, that's a hard no for me. I fell in love with New York and the East Coast. And I came to visit for like a dance job, and I was like, oh, it's really nice here. And like the weather's really nice. I want to say it was like January, February, and the weather was nice. And I had just come from New York where it was just like so cold and depressing and, just not it, snow. And that was kind of the first thing where I was like, it just started to jog my mind of like, can I do this weather forever? It started with weather. And then I just started to like really look at my life, and, as many things in dance that I'm super proud that I got to do, I was still living in an apartment with three other roommates, and it was like not the most comfortable. And then I started being like, well, I would love to just like have more to my life. So it was really more of a life decision. in why I even started looking at LA. And then the next time I went to LA, I was visiting again. I was kind of like more seriously checking it out. I was taking more class. I was at the time just checking out the dancing because in my mind that's what I wanted to keep doing. And I auditioned for this like fairly big audition, one of the bigger ones I'd ever done. And I told myself, you know, if for whatever reason I booked this, because at this point there was like hundreds of people there, if for whatever reason I booked this, then that's a sure sign I'm just going to move. And I did book it. I think I was one of like 7 girls. And I was like, okay, I guess that's a good sign. So I went straight back to New York. I packed, I did the job, went straight back to New York, packed all my stuff, didn't tell anybody. And I just left. And I came, got an apartment. Um, but then the funny thing is that when I first was here, I didn't like it. So I was in this like vacation bliss at first where I was like, it's weather, it's this, people seem to be happier. You get to like be outside for more months out of the year. And then when I really got here, I missed New York, or I couldn't let go of like the vibe that I liked so much about New York. And then I think what started to switch was fitness, like diving more into that. And just like kind of like you said, like it was more of a lifestyle change. Like I had to change because I was kind of used to like happy hours and, you know, no water ever. And it was a constant hustle. And in LA you could really breathe, and that was really uncomfortable for me. And then once I started to grow beyond the hustle mentality and really learn to live, I think that's when I started to love LA and love what I do out here.
One of my best friends, she just moved from New York to LA, and she's also like making that transition of like, oh yeah, you're not like going from work into another thing and like going on the train and going like just like the fast pace of it, and like friendships look different. People host at their homes, right? And
Mm-hmm.
just like a different pace and speed, which is definitely a shift. So, you know, one of the things I asked you even right, you know, before we got on was like, are you going by Lauren or Lo these days? And so tell me a little bit about the evolution of like Coach Lo. When did you really become the coach and like really dive into that identity?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I feel like even on Guam, like some people call me Lauren, but I feel like a lot of people call me Lorena. And when I went to New York, Lo kind of started in dance. My choreographer at the time, um, I guess it's just like the mainland thing for people to call you if your name is Lauren. Like you just started calling me Lo, and I was like, okay. And no one would say Lorena because they would always say Lorena. And I hated that. I was like, okay, don't call me that. So, when he started calling me Lo, other people around me started calling me Lo, and I sort of ran with it in dance, and that's kind of what I was known at. So when I transitioned into fitness, I just kept Lo because I felt like it was easier, and then visually on a schedule, it seemed more interesting. Like if I was looking at a schedule instead of seeing like Coach Lauren, like no shade to anyone named Lauren who does fitness, but seeing Coach Lauren versus Coach Lo just seemed to have a better ring to it.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I could totally see you in and envision you like in your classes as Coach Lowe. It's such a good fit for you. So where did I know you were, you know, trying different studios and you or different gyms and really learning more about boxing, but where did you learn or who kind of inspired you to make the jump to be a coach?
So I was working front desk at Barry's Boot Camp, which is super widely known, right? And I was pretty okay doing that, but I would watch the instructors come in, and it really was kind of this like superstar status, you know, because at the end of the day, it was like a performer. And at this point, I had really like taken a giant step back from dance, like really trying to figure out if I even wanted to do it anymore. But at the end of the day, I am still a performer. And that was the part that I loved about dance, you know, is that being able to like be somewhat of a show. And so seeing that at Barry's, I was like, I think I'd really be down to try it. I didn't want to do it at Barry's. I remember being like too terrified to do that. Um, but I just sent my stuff out to everyone, even though I knew I didn't have like any of the, you know, it's like in serving where they're like, you need to have 2+ years of serving, but no one will let you serve. It was like the same thing. So I sent my stuff out, and then this one place, Lit Method, which was at the time like a smaller company, just decided to take me on. I think it's really attractive in fitness if you're a dancer because they know that you have rhythm, you have good body mechanics, like you know a good amount about the body, and you on some level know how to perform. And in LA, like group fitness, like performance is key. You know, you could be the best trainer in the world, but if you don't know how to perform, it's like really hard to make that jump from personal training to group fitness. So they kind of got me into it, and I didn't know I was even gonna like it because I also realized I was afraid to talk, which I don't even know if you knew, but I used to be really self conscious with my voice and like speaking up a lot, and it would make me like death, like so nervous because I think it was like elementary school where people used to imitate my voice a lot. And I don't think it was ever like malicious, but because they did that, it felt like it was. And so then I was super soft spoken. And then when I was jumping into fitness, I was like, oh, wait, I have to be on a mic and I have to be like the person in charge. And that was like really nerve wracking for me. So in doing my first fitness job, I think that that really like got me to want to teach fitness, mixture between berries and the first fitness job.
Yeah, I can totally resonate and relate to that. I was just thinking, I was like, you're used to performing and you're used to dancing, but there's no element of voice in that and using your voice. And, I also am pretty soft spoken too. And I also didn't really like to be, I was always so scared of public speaking, so scared of, if I'm in a class, I'm not the one raising my hand. I listen, but I'm not like the first one to jump in and like give feedback even. So my first yoga classes that I taught, I remember being like, oh my gosh, like this is so scary. And now, I'm like a couple years into it, I've found my voice and I know how to use it. But as a personality, I'm still kind of, more on the soft spoken. I'm not going to be the front and center attention piece of it. So, I imagine people look at you and they're like, she's so confident. She has no issues getting in front of the stage, like, or in front of, a class. So how has your confidence sort of evolved as you've added voice into the performance piece and of teaching a class?
Yeah, I think it's like the missing piece that I've always needed. Like if I was this confident in dance, I think I could have even done more, than I did because I would have been more willing to speak up with people. So I think it's helped me be confident because it's helped me express myself more and be able to like speak up for myself and um, be able to like be vulnerable because then that's the next layer, right? Me being able to like speak up was one thing and be this like booming voice, right? But the next layer was like, okay, how do I use my voice? How do I use the words that I'm saying to actually like help people? So I think through and through, it's made me confident, but it's also given me like the best tool to be vulnerable. And vulnerability for me is strength in how I'm able to speak.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that a lot of the experiences that you've had, like, we're talking a lot about your career trajectory and what led you here, but a lot was happening behind the scenes, I'm sure, whether, you mentioned earlier the passing of your mom, moving, different changes, relationships, whatever that looks like. So what pieces of your sort of personal journey have you brought into your teaching to share and be vulnerable? Because I'm sure that that's what attracts so many people to your work is, yeah, you can teach a great class, but you're also going to share like wisdom and share your heart. So what personal things have influenced what you share?
I am at this point where I share everything. I think I'm really lucky to teach for a brand that, really prioritizes mental health. And they sort of taught us the importance of storytelling. When I first started teaching, I really kept it pretty light. Like, I don't think I even told people in class, like, definitely not on a mic, that my mom had passed, and my own insecurities of, like, for example, my voice or my body or, there's a part of me that feels like I failed in dance. There's so many things that I kept inside of me that this brand really helped me eventually. I think it even took like a year and a half, 2 years within teaching that brand in particular that I even started telling stories. And it was sort of like a whatever moment, I'm just going to do it because maybe it'll help someone. So I have on my phone this like on the notes app, I have an ideas list and I just write down stories that I remember. And I started to list them, but personal things where I've talked about my mom a lot. because I didn't. For like 10 years, I told people that my mom passed, and obviously people knew her, who knew her knew, but I didn't really talk about the extreme effect that it had on me as a human being, and you knew her, you knew our relationship, and for me to not have talked about it for so long is kind of wild. I really held that in. um, I didn't talk about my dad a lot. I don't think I talked about him even growing up that much. I talk about him super openly. And there are people, whether it's that you lost a parent or didn't have a parent around, there's always something that they can relate to. Um, so I pull everything. If someone flicked me off on the road, I tell the story. If I popped my tire, I tell the story. I get a million parking tickets in LA, I tell the story. And I try to find a way to, tie it in that it actually relates to them, and it's not just me, pouring my heart out. Like there's a connecting point.
That's such a beautiful reminder. I also have a note a notes in my phone of like just ideas of things that I want to share and talk about on social media. And a lot of it comes even within my health coaching sessions. Like we'll be having a conversation. I'm like, okay, I've got to share about this talking about boundaries, or talking about. I had a yoga class the other day, and the theme was ease. How can you find more ease in your life? And I was telling a story at the start of the class about even just my day and how like different parts of it felt easeful and what didn't feel easeful. So storytelling is so powerful, and especially getting to infuse that into your work. It takes fitness and wellness just to another level. I've definitely like been in soul cycle classes where I'm like crying when in the dark because I'm like, oh, they're talking about something, right? So I'm sure that that's so powerful for your students, or for the people that come to you.
Yeah.
So as a coach, one of the big things that a constant theme that's always coming up with people I work with is motivation. Either finding motivation, keeping motivation, losing motivation, and wanting to restart. So, I part of what you do is constantly motivating people, but also you have to stay motivated in your own wellness and fitness journey. So, tell me a little bit about how motivation has kind of showed up for you in your path.
It's so funny that we're talking about it. I feel like I was having a debate with someone about motivation in general, because um, they feel that motivation is not real, and that it's not something to rely on. And on some level, I do agree. I do think, like, I look at motivation as kind of like fleeting, and as a sprint a little bit, right? Like you have it, you're like, I want to, let's say it's working out. I'm going to work out. So then you go to the gym, and you're there for 2 hours, you do 2,000 things, and then you're sore you can't do anything for 3 months. Like, so I look at motivation as like definitely a tool to get you moving. But I think that the thing that keeps you is just consistency, and I think again, motivation makes you think about the big thing, the big step, doing the 100 push-ups without thinking about the one push-up, and I think for me, I've actually strayed away from just saying I'm here to motivate. I'm here to keep you consistent. I'm here to keep you consistent to wake up and do it, because you're not going to feel motivated. The days that you don't feel motivated are usually, and this is like the day old thing you hear on everyone's thing, but it's true. You don't always wake up when it's cold outside and it's raining, and to go and take a fitness class. But you do know that if you take it, you'll feel better tomorrow. And then some weeks you're going to be super motivated, and you're going to get there and you're going to crush it. But I think all the levels need to be there. So I think motivation has to work in combination with consistency, is the way I like. Motivation is the start, but everything else is the filler.
Definitely agree with you on that. It's not going to be. I find that a lot of my clients, when they're starting habits, they start to get into a consistent flow too. But there are going to be days that everything's out the window, and you have to choose one thing that is going to ground you and get you through that day, or like a really stressful period. Like even in those times, like that's the time to practice and to continue to put even just a little bit of mindful intention into your day. So the people that come to your your regulars, the people who are there, like they're there at every class. I'm sure you have a couple people in mind of like, oh, they're consistent, right? What do you think stands out? Like, what are they doing maybe differently or mindset wise? Like, how do you feel like they are maybe different from the person that maybe just pops in every couple months?
That's a really good question. If I had to think about my regulars that come, I think it's like really as simple as that. They just come. They know that they paid the money. They know that, sometimes it's me, sometimes they come to just like in their minds they're coming to hang out with me, but they find every little reason to come. And I would say a lot of times those people, I want to say, I guess it's not where they stand because sometimes I think they stand in the front, but that's not always true because I have some people who come every day and they're just in the back. I think they're just also, I think what it is, they're really honest with where they're at. So, one thing I always tell them, like, if you only have like 10% in the tank, if you give 100% of 10%, that's like a 100% success rate. And I think they have really bought into that. And so they'll come in and they'll be like, Lo, I'm so tired. Okay, you do what you got to do, but you're here. And so they do it. And I think the ones that pop in, they're sort of the ones expecting the miracle in one session. They expect it to fix their lives in one session. And they usually don't talk to me that much. They'll do like a little bit, and sometimes they're the ones to post actually, and tag me, but then I don't see them again. So I think the difference maybe if I had to look at it outside looking in, um, the ones that come, I hear them more. They talk more, which kind of goes hand in hand to what we were talking about earlier. And the ones that don't.
Yeah. Yeah. So that even having me thinking about some of the regulars that I have. And I noticed that, a couple things that they are constantly doing is, yeah, they're always signing up. You can always pre-register, right? So they're always signing up in advance. Like they have their classes booked. I noticed that
For sure.
they bring a friend sometimes. So some of my regulars have also introduced me to new regulars because they bring a friend, they book 2 tickets for something, for an event or whatever. It's like they're kind of
Mhm.
using it as like a friend date, which I love. And then also I've noticed some regulars, like, they'll get to yoga early, even like 30 minutes early, and maybe they're journaling or they're just meditating, or like I could tell it's much more than just the hour class that they've booked. Like they're coming and they're making it an
Absolutely.
experience, which I can tell, like, okay, this is meaningful for you, and they're kind of committed to
Yeah.
themselves, which is amazing to see.
And that's a really good point. I think that's something I totally missed. They bring their friends or they make friends in the class they weren't friends before, and then they create those friendships. They get on the group text with each other. And I think that's like also within the power of us to be able to help create some of those relationships because that is your accountability the days that you want to go, but you'll go see your friends, even if you don't feel like working out. And I mean, that's a good point. Like people who come that don't always come, they're usually by themselves or they'll maybe bring a friend, but most of the time they don't. That's a good observation.
Yeah. So I know that you have really been amazing at manifesting really aligned partnerships, whether that's your the studio that you're at. And now I know that you're working with Nike, which is incredible. So tell me a little bit about what that process was like to become a Nike trainer, and also, yeah, what you're learning from even being part of such a big, well known brand.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So this is Nike Studios, which is a pilot underneath. It's a project underneath Fit Lab, which is similar to like an Exponential Fitness, which like bought out Rumble, Cycle Bar, a few other brands. So Fit Lab houses other brands, but they took on this Nike Studios pilot to help bring awareness that Nike might need some group fitness presence, because they have the Nike athlete, they have, the Nike Wellness Collective, but, what would it look like if Nike was in the group fitness circuit, which is its own, industry in itself. So Nike definitely has like a big hand in these Nike studios, but they're not fully bought in just yet. They're sort of seeing like how they fit within this industry. And honestly, the way I think I got it was through a friend. She used to work with me at another spot, and then she became the director of talent in her current her current role at Fit Lab. So she's like almost solely running the talent for Nike Studios at all different locations that's now opening. They're opening a run studio, more training studios like the one I'm at, and in like Austin, Texas as well. So I think the goal is to have it boom.
That's incredible. That's incredible. From your early experience with it, what have you, I guess, learned or even been able to witness that's maybe different from previous partnerships or companies that you've been
Yeah.
part of?
So it's a different model for me. I've never taught circuit, like a circuit based workout where you're at stations, you know? So for me as a trainer, as a coach, it's interesting how I guide that vocally and just like leading the room because it does make people a little bit more internal depending on how they, connect with their room or with their group. Sometimes they don't have any desire to. So, like, how do I bring what I know how to do in this like sort of new format? So that's something that I'm still working through as a trainer there. But also, I think the biggest plus for me has just been learning just more about like functional training. Some of the best heads in fitness are the ones programming these classes. It's also new for me that I don't program my class. It's done for me. I can't really like make my own playlist. Again, I just choose from preset ones. So it really is me like studying my cues a bit, but then showing up and teaching, which is so hard because I'm so used to like doing all of it and then coming in and executing every little detail. So it's definitely having me uh, learn things that are out of my comfort zone, how to coach those, which is great because that's what I wanted, and how to make something that would seemingly be out of my reach mine and in my language so that people can still resonate. So I think it's been a good challenge.
Yeah, something I just witnessed even from listening to your story is that theme of like you're constantly putting yourself out of your comfort zone, even when it's hard, whether that's a move, whether that's something new, like constantly wanting to be in that space of like, I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but I'm figuring it out. But outside of the Nike partnership that you have, what other ways is that showing up for you these days? Like, in what other ways are you feeling maybe on the edge or out of your comfort zone, or like something kind of, yeah, is brewing that's not quite comfortable for you?
The biggest thing is fighting. Like I'm still, gearing up for my first fight. Again, it was supposed to happen this past Sunday. And I would say that this has been like the scariest, most nerve wracking thing I've ever decided to put myself through. Because really, I'm not getting paid to do it. I'm really just deciding to do this. Um, so I think that that's been my biggest like in my personal life to do it. I could easily just keep being like a boxing coach that knows a lot about boxing, or a boxer myself that just trains a lot. But for whatever reason, it feels like in my heart like I need to fight, which is it's. I mean, I only weighed in on Sunday, and I was like, I thought I went through the most amount of emotions I've ever been through in like under 5 minutes. Like I went from being like excited to like, you know, nervous to wanting to throw up, but then also like being fine. Like it's an experience I've never had to touch before. I had to meditate the night before and the morning of. I was never a big person that meditated, to be honest. It's made me confront myself a lot, like truly confront myself a lot, like things that I thought I had worked on that I had not. Um, so at some point, I'm kind of like, it's not even really about the fight. The fight is just the tool. So I'm sure I'll find another tool later. I do tend to do that. Like I move and sometimes I'm like, are you running? Are you running from? Are you running to? What are all these like stimuli that you feel like you need to continue to do? But I think it's so fascinating to know things about yourself. It's so fascinating to know like what you would do. Did I need to get into a ring and get hit? Probably not. But like in my mind, I think that was what was necessary for me.
I can't wait to see what your fight looks like, and how I'm sure it already sounds like even just the preparation for it is such a lesson and such a powerful opportunity to reflect. I'm curious for you when you think about those things that come up, like you mentioned, like it's brought up a lot for you, whether those are like patterns or triggers or whatever that might be. Do you notice that there is a theme in those that you're like, okay, this thing is, we talked a little bit about perfectionism, right? Getting out of your comfort zone, using your voice, but do you notice there's like constantly things that come up at different like challenging points in your life? They're like, okay, this lesson's back again for another round.
Um, there's definitely a few things. One is this feeling of needing to do it myself. Um, that's one. Like I feel like it's I'll say it this way. It's trust. Like I think I've had like a lot of amazing people in my life. But there's just some things that have happened that I've lost trust in people at certain points in my life. And I've noticed in this process, like that has come up where I don't trust that people are supporting me, which is wild because everyone is so supportive, or I feel like I need to do this like alone. So that's one thing that's been a struggle. Anytime I feel like I'm doing that, I force myself to text my teammate, or I force myself to like call someone or voice note my coach, just so that I'm telling myself like, like you don't need to do this by yourself. You're not alone. Like you can do this. So that's definitely one. Um, Another one that I think I come up against a lot is like not feeling enough, or not feeling like just not feeling like I'm good enough in a lot of aspects, whether it be, physical or effort. I think I've always done this, but I didn't really know that that's what it was. But I overwork a lot. Like I overtrain. I did it in dance too. I overdo things because I don't feel like I have enough to offer, just me being me. Me, if I wasn't doing any of those things in my mind, I'm not enough. So it comes up a lot. But I think some of the ways I battle that, um, I sort of do an inventory of everything that I have and an inventory of things that I've done. I date it back to even being home, like even all the things that I did back home where I didn't give it enough weight or credit, skip all of that. And I start to just really just logically break it down and list all the things that I did that I know that if I had not shown up, me, or if I had not put the time in, it wouldn't have happened. So the fact that it did happen, and I'm now 35, and the list of things that I've done, I'm so proud of. Why is that not enough? And then again, a lot of conversations with myself.
But that's so important, right? Is to have that awareness. Like most people will not have that awareness. Like, okay, I'm doing that again, right? I'm feeling it. Like being able to look back and like meet yourself and be like, here we are again, but maybe I'm completely different this time around when it's coming up. Those positive affirmations, like having limiting beliefs, like kind of unpacking that is such a huge part of many people's wellness journey. So I'm sure that a lot of people listening will resonate with that. It's like find your coach low on your shoulder to say like, you've got this, girl.
And I have to add, a lot of it, the part of the reason I think I have to attack it a little bit is because they can smell it. Like it's like a shark in the water, right? Like if you have any ounce of doubt, they'll know. And it can happen, seconds at a time. But part of the reason why I think this process more than any has forced me to really work on those things, not just like lightly touch them, but like really try to find things that help ground me. Because the thing about it is like those things are not going to go away. They're not just going to one day disappear. It's like layers and layers of trauma that will, probably live with me until I die. But it's about now finding tools that bring me back, like you said, this like grounding, this ability to bring yourself back to like what I have is so great. It's like what I was born with is great. So great. I don't need to, just because I lack it, or I don't even like the word lack, just because some things aren't there right now doesn't mean that A needs to be there, or B, like I can't get it at some point.
Absolutely. So I know you mentioned you have a lot of exciting things on the horizon, whether that's your fight, working with Nike, but when you look ahead for yourself of like, this is where I'd love my path to go. Granted, it could always go in different directions, but where do you see yourself from here? Where would you like to go next in your path?
So I want to actually I want to tell stories. So I one thing that I'm planning to do is I guess it's a semi podcast, but I just want to all the stories that I tell in class. I want to start doing them on like an actual platform, like to be able to reach more people. So that's the first thing on the list. And then outside of that, like I love teaching at where I teach. I love teaching, in the city that I teach, but I would love to try and like spread it out, and find more ways to connect, maybe back home. That's a big dream of mine. Having whether it's like events or things like that, but just being able to connect with people worldwide and not just, in the one studio that I'm in. So that's kind
Yeah,
of
it
what
would
I
be
see
so
in the
amazing
next.
to have you back here in Guam for a bit. We'll definitely have to connect and collaborate. I would love to get you out here for something, and I think people would be
Yeah.
so inspired from you, not in the dance community, in the fitness community, just as a storyteller, as a speaker. So yeah, we'll definitely stay connected. So the final question that I'm asking at every conversation to close us up would be, what is lighting you up these days?
Oh, that's such a good question. Um, okay. It's my whole morning routine, but specifically, it's like I give myself like 5 to 7 minutes, depending on how long the other things took. 5 to 7 minutes where I sit with my coffee on my bed and I like look out my window because I live in a studio apartment, so I can see directly out. Um, and I also like take in every inch of my apartment because my mind I'm like I built this with my hands. Well, not the building, but that's been like my what makes me feel like ready for the day.
Oh, beautiful. I'm also noticing, are you wearing a little Guam necklace? Yes.
Oh yeah,
I was like,
I always wear I got it, from PIFA obviously before the pandemic, and I don't take it off. I shower with it. I'm probably not supposed to, but
representing.
I don't even take it off for sparring, and I think for the fight, I probably should take it off, but I never take it off.
I love it. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much it was so great to reconnect and hear what you've been up to since we last connected. I'm so proud of you and inspired by you. I hope you take like this moment to soak in like what you're doing and how many people you're already impacting with the work that you do. So keep us posted on the fight too. Thanks so much for joining. Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, please rate and review, and don't forget to subscribe. Learn more at enowellnesscollective.com and connect with us on Instagram at enowellnesscollective.